Captain sat alone on the observation deck of the human exploration ship. Outside the wide window, millions of cold stars shined like distant memories. The ship hummed softly, but the hallway behind him was silent. Too silent. The kind of silence that reminded a person how small, how breakable, and how alone a human heart could feel in the endless dark. Rested his elbows on his knees and lowered his head. His uniform was clean, his captain's badge polished, but his spirit felt worn and tired. The last mission had taken 3 of his crew. They were young, brave, and full of dreams. Now they were gone, lost to the swarm that hunted the edges of human space. Everyone expected the captain to be strong. Everyone believed could handle anything. But tonight, he felt the weight of every lost life sitting on his shoulders like cold metal. He whispered something, so soft that even he almost didn't hear it. "I just don't want to be alone anymore." It wasn't a dramatic speech. It wasn't a call to the universe. It was simply a quiet wish. A small, fragile hope that maybe somewhere someone or something would care enough to notice. Not because he wanted power or comfort or some heroic destiny, just because the loneliness was becoming too heavy. But the deck stayed silent. The stars didn't change. The universe did what it always did. It ignored him. Let out a long, slow breath and looked at the empty chair across from him. He remembered the laughter that used to fill this room. His crew once gathered here late at night, arguing about food, telling jokes, sharing stories of home. They believed in him then. They trusted him. Now those days felt like another lifetime. He stood up, rubbing the tiredness from his face, and walked toward the door. The ship's lights flickered slightly as he passed, as if the ship was also sighing, touched the wall gently. "I'll keep going," he whispered, "even if it's alone." But deep inside, he wished his words weren't true. Far away in a hidden corner of the galaxy where space curled and twisted like flowing water, something stirred. The nebula of whispering echoes was a strange place, full of colors humans had no names for, and inside one of its swirling clouds was a presence, a being, a mind. Her name was... She floated in a fragile survival pod, one she had kept functioning through sheer will. Her body was weak, her race nearly extinct, and her heart felt heavier than the nebula's gravity. For years, she had drifted in this silent darkness, avoiding the who hunted her species. She survived, yes, but she did not truly live. Her people, though, were born with a gift. They could sense emotional echoes carried through quantum fields. Not thoughts, not words, only the raw feelings behind whispered wishes, quiet prayers, and unspoken hopes. They could hear loneliness. They could hear pain. They could hear longing. Most echoes were faint, flickering like dying starlight. But tonight felt something different. A voice, soft, human, full of quiet sadness. "I just don't want to be alone anymore." The whisper felt warm, honest. It cut through the cold of space like a gentle hand reaching out. It wasn't a wish for power or salvation. It wasn't a cry for help born from fear. It was a simple human truth. A desire to not walk the universe alone. Opened her eyes slowly. They glowed faint lilac in the darkness. Her heart tightened, not with fear, but with recognition. She had wandered the void for so long, believing no one in the universe wished for anything she could answer. But here it was, a whisper that called to her. A whisper she felt she had been waiting for. "This human," she murmured. "Why does his voice feel familiar?" She touched the side of her pod. She felt her strength fading, but she also felt a pull, gentle yet certain. The universe had connected her to this voice for a reason. She did not know his face, his world, or his name, but she knew his loneliness. She knew that feeling far too well. And something inside her shifted. For the first time in years, she chose to move, to follow the echo, to find the human whose quiet wish had reached her heart. In the cold nebula, the lights of her pod flickered, and slowly turned toward the distant star where they drifted through space. Whispered back, though no one could hear her yet. "You are not alone, I am coming." Weeks had passed since Whispered his quiet wish. They drifted through a remote sector of space, scanning for uncharted systems. The ship's engines hummed and its metal walls echoed with the quiet steps of the remaining crew. But despite the routine of repairs and calculations, the atmosphere felt heavy. The shadows seemed longer, the air colder. Still carried that same ache in his chest, a loneliness he couldn't shake. Then the alarms went off. A weak life signal appeared on the sensors. It was faint, irregular, almost ghost-like. The crew gathered around the console, eyes wide. "Captain," said Lieutenant, her voice tight, "it's coming from a drifting pod, no identification, unknown species." His heart skipped. He had seen life signals before, yes, but something about this one felt different. Fragile, almost pleading. "Bring it aboard," he ordered, though a small voice in his head wondered if this was a trap. The swarm was known to use decoys, but another part of him, something older, softer, whispered that he had to see it. The pod's airlock hissed open, and the crew carefully lifted the figure inside. She was small, human-shaped, but unlike anything they had ever seen. Her skin shimmered faintly, like starlight reflected on water, and silver veins glowed softly beneath it. Her body trembled with exhaustion. Her eyes were closed, delicate lashes brushing her cheek. Even in unconsciousness, she radiated a quiet strength. "Get her too," said. He knelt beside her, gently supporting her as the crew moved her along. For some reason, the moment he touched her, he felt a strange warmth, a connection he couldn't explain. His chest tightened. Hours later, she woke. The lights were soft, the hum of machinery low. Her eyes opened slowly, soft lilac that seemed to hold both fear and understanding. And then she looked directly at. "Human," she whispered, her voice weak but clear. "So this is the voice." Froze, his mind stammered. "Voice." She tried to sit up, but her strength failed. He caught her without hesitation, holding her gently as though she could shatter. I don't understand," he said. "Who are you?" "I heard your wish," she said, her eyes never leaving his. "In the dark, in the quiet." The crew exchanged glances. Something unspoken passed between them all. His heart pounded, and yet he felt a strange calm. No one else had ever understood him like this. Not his crew. No one. "My name is," the alien said. Her voice was melodic, almost musical, yet full of weight and experience. "I am the last of the... I survived when the hunted my people. I have been hiding for years, drifting until your voice reached me." Blinked, speechless. He had whispered his wish in the cold, thinking it meaningless, that no one could hear. And yet here was someone not human telling him she had heard it, felt it, responded. "You knew my wish?" he asked, his voice shaking. She nodded weakly. "Not the words, the feeling, the loneliness. You did not ask for power or revenge. You asked to not be alone. That is rare among warriors." Swallowed, he wanted to say something, but his throat was tight. Years of silence, of unspoken longing pressed against his ribs, making every breath heavy. I thought no one could hear that," he whispered. "You were wrong," said. A faint smile brushed her lips. "Someone always listens. Even when you think the universe ignores you, there is someone who understands." For the first time in weeks, allowed himself to feel something he had forgotten, hope. The kind of hope that is soft, fragile, and almost frightening because it feels undeserved. He still didn't know how to trust it, but he wanted to. The hours passed in quiet companionship. Told him about their ability to sense the emotions and quiet wishes of others, and how she had drifted through the nebula for years, always alone. Told her about the crew, the battles, the weight of leadership. Words flowed, tentative at first, then easier, like two long-lost friends discovering a shared language. And slowly realized something that shook him to the core. For the first time in years, he did not feel alone. Not really. Here, in the sterile room of a human ship, in the presence of someone who had heard him when no one else could, he felt seen. But deep in his chest, a warning settled. Peace was fragile. He had survived attacks, lost crew members, and endured uncountable dangers. And yet, for the first time, he feared not the swarm, but the thought of losing her. Did not say it aloud, but the feeling clung to him. Somehow this encounter was only the beginning, and he had a strange, inexplicable certainty that the quiet wish he had thought meaningless was about to change everything. Days passed aboard and the ship felt different now. The corridors no longer seemed empty. The hum of the engines carried a new rhythm, steady but alive. Found himself walking past the observation deck more often, glancing at the stars, but also looking for her. She moved slowly, still recovering from her injuries. But there was something in the way she carried herself, delicate yet determined, that drew him in without words. She learned human habits quickly. Small things first. The way rubbed his eyes when he was tired, the way the crew laughed at the tiniest joke, the way silence could be both comforting and heavy. She listened more than she spoke, and when she did speak, her voice was soft but filled with weight, like a melody carrying 1,000 untold stories. Found himself looking forward to those moments. One evening they were alone in the observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly outside, blinking like distant candles. Leaned against the railing, her glowing skin reflecting faintly in the glass. Stood nearby, trying to find words that didn't exist. "You never ask for comfort, do you?" she said softly, almost as if reading his thoughts. Frowned, I try not to. It's not weakness to stay strong." "But strength does not mean being alone," she countered gently. Her lilac eyes studied him, patient and curious. "I can feel it, the loneliness you carry, the quiet wish you made. You wanted someone to stand with you, not to fight your battles, just to be there." He looked away, suddenly embarrassed. Humans rarely spoke of their inner desires so openly. And yet here was an alien woman, someone he barely knew, speaking the truth he had kept hidden for years. "I didn't think anyone would hear it," he admitted, voice low. "I thought it was just words in the dark, a wish no one could feel." She reached out, lightly touching his hand. The warmth of her skin and the faint pulse of energy under her touch made him pause. "I heard it," she said simply. "And I came. You are not alone anymore, not while I am here." The room went quiet, except for the low hum of the ship. Swallowed hard. His chest ached, not from battle, but from the raw, human feeling of being understood. He wanted to speak, to say something meaningful, but words failed, so he just nodded. From that night their routine changed. Found himself sharing small, private thoughts with, not mission details, not strategies, but memories, fears, and regrets. Listened, never judging, always present. She told him about her past, her people, their near extinction, the years of hiding in the nebula. Learned of her loneliness, of the way she had drifted through space, hoping someone would hear her, though she never expected it. There was a gentle rhythm to their bond. Felt a subtle joy when he saw her smile, and she seemed to respond to his emotions almost instinctively. She could sense his moods, his quiet wishes, his fleeting moments of fear and hope. And he, in turn, found himself wanting to protect her, not just from harm, but from pain. One afternoon, the two of them stood in the deck as the ship passed a dying star, reached out her hand and touched the glass, letting the faint silver glow of her veins reflect against the distant light. "I thought the universe had forgotten me," she said. "But then I heard your voice, and it made me remember what it feels like to hope." Watched her, feeling a lump form in his throat. "You've been alone too, all this time." "Yes," she whispered, "but now I am not." The simplicity of the moment struck him. No explosions, no danger, no glory. Just two beings drifting in the vast emptiness, choosing to stand together. A human and an alien, bound not by duty or blood, but by the quiet recognition of each other's hearts. For it was both terrifying and comforting. He had been trained to lead, to fight, to make impossible decisions. But he had never been trained to let someone in, to allow himself to feel vulnerable. Yet it felt natural. And so a bond formed in silence, stronger than words. They shared meals, small jokes, stories of home, and quiet moments staring at the infinite stars. Realized slowly and painfully that this connection, this fragile, luminous thread, was something he had been missing his entire life. But in the back of his mind, a quiet warning lingered. The galaxy was vast, and danger was never far. Presence was a gift, but he knew that the universe rarely allowed such gifts to remain untested. Something would come to challenge them. Something would test this fragile bond that had formed between the human captain and the alien who had answered his quiet wish. And even though he did not yet understand how or when, felt it in his bones, their story was only beginning. The calm aboard that did not last long. Days of quiet bonding between and were shattered when the ship's sensors suddenly flared red. The swarm had found them. His hands clenched the railing as he stared at the incoming fleet on the holographic display. Dozens of jagged black ships moved like living predators, swarming with precision and hunger. Though was not ready for a battle of this scale. Its hull had been weakened by past missions, and its weapons could only hold for so long. Lieutenant's voice trembled over the intercom. "Captain, they're closing fast. We can't outrun them. They'll board if we don't act." His jaw tightened. He had faced death before countless times. But this time something else gnawed at him, a fear he could not ignore. He turned to the medical bay where she stood near the observation window. Her lilac eyes reflected the red glare of approaching ships. The soft glow of her veins pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. She seemed small, delicate, but he knew better. Something in her presence carried power, and yet she was terrified. "They followed me," she said quietly, almost to herself. "If I leave, they will chase me. They will come for me first. You and your crew, you might survive." "No," said firmly. He stepped closer, his voice soft but unwavering. "I won't let you sacrifice yourself. Not now, not ever." Shook her head. "You don't understand, human, can sense the final wishes of others. I can hear them in ways you cannot. Your wish, it was different. You did not ask for glory or death. You asked for connection, for someone to stand with you. That wish reached me." Her voice cracked slightly, the weight of emotion evident. "And now I must stand with you." His chest tightened. He wanted to argue, to insist she stay safe. But he also felt something stirring deep inside, a strange hope. Even in the face of the swarm, even in the shadow of imminent danger, he felt her determination, and he could not take that away. The crew moved to battle stations, fear etched on their faces. Weapon systems were armed, shields raised, and emergency protocols initiated. Outside the window, the ships closed in, engines humming like predatory insects circling a flame. Glanced at, she stood calmly now, though the tension was evident in the tremble of her hands. She had not fought alongside humans before, yet she radiated a quiet strength he had never seen in any soldier. "You will not face this alone," she said, her voice stronger now, almost commanding. "We face it together." Felt a lump in his throat. He had commanded crews through countless battles, yet never had he felt so powerless and so certain at the same time. There was trust in her eyes, trust that he could not refuse. And for the first time, he realized that survival might not come from weapons or tactics, but from the bond they shared. The ships opened fire. Red energy beams tore through the darkness, striking the shields with force. Alarms screamed. The crew shouted commands. Smoke filled the corridors. Chaos threatened to swallow them whole. But did not panic. He moved with purpose, coordinating the defense, protecting his crew, and always keeping an eye on. And she, in turn, moved with grace and precision. She directed energy pulses from the ship systems in ways no one expected, using her own unique abilities to shield key areas. Realized something astonishing. She was not just helping. They were synchronizing, moving as one. Still, the swarm was relentless. Each passing second brought new waves of black ships, sharper and faster than the last. The crew fought valiantly, but knew the truth. They could not hold forever. Stepped closer, her hand brushing his arm briefly. Her glow pulsed brighter. "There is a way," she said quietly. "But it will change me forever. I can stop them, but my body will not survive. Only my energy can defeat them." His heart clenched. "No, I won't lose you." "You already won't be alone," she whispered. "Not after this. I will answer your quiet wish, even if it costs me everything." He swallowed hard, the magnitude of her words weighing him down. He had asked the universe for one small thing, to not be alone. And now, in the shadow of a storm that could destroy them all, someone he had never imagined would listen and act, stood before him, ready to give everything for him. Realized then that hope was not always quiet, and courage was not always loud. Sometimes it glowed softly in the presence of another soul willing to face the darkness with you. The battle was coming. The choice was theirs, and for the first time felt the weight of his quiet wish transform into something unstoppable. They shuddered as the swarm drew closer. Red energy streaked across the dark void, striking shields and shaking the hull. Sparks flew, alarms screamed, and crew members ran to their stations, shouting orders. His hands gripped the railing, his knuckles white. His heart pounded, not from the danger around him, but from the sight of standing near the center of the deck. Her soft lilac eyes glowed brighter, pulsing with energy he could almost feel in his chest. She turned to him, her expression calm but filled with determination. "There is a way to stop them," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, yet cutting through the chaos like a bell. Stomach sank. "What way?" he asked, stepping closer, trying to read her face. "Tell me anything, we can do it together." His glow intensified, and she raised her hands, letting silver light ripple across her skin. "I can use energy to destroy the swarm," she explained. "But if I do, my body will not survive. I will become energy scattered across space." His heart stopped, his voice trembled. "You're saying you'll die?" "Yes," she said softly. "I will give everything I have to save you, to save your crew, but it will change me. I will no longer exist as I am now." Felt a tight knot form in his chest. He had faced death countless times, watched friends fall in battle, and survived impossible situations. But this was different. He could not imagine losing her. She had come into his life unexpectedly, heard a quiet wish no one else ever noticed, and now she was offering herself. "You don't have to do this," he said, his voice breaking. "There has to be another way. Please don't leave me like that." Stepped closer, her hand reaching for his. The warmth of her touch contrasted with the cold fear in his heart. She said, her voice steady, "I am not leaving you. I am giving you what you wished for. Your loneliness, it ends here. But to do it, I must face the darkness fully. You cannot stop this. Only I can." Tears burned his eyes, and he struggled to speak. I don't want to be alone again," he whispered. His chest heaved. "Please don't go, not now, not like this." She leaned forward, placing her forehead gently against his, a gesture she had observed humans do when comforting one another. Her glowing skin radiated warmth into him. "I am here. I have heard your heart, and I will answer your wish." The ships were closer now. Explosions rattled the deck, lights flickered, and smoke drifted through the corridors. The crew looked on, unsure what was happening, but sensing the extraordinary power held. Tried to pull her back to keep her safe, but she held firm. "You will survive," she whispered, "because someone stood with you. You will never be alone, not after this." He swallowed the lump in his throat and nodded, though his heart shattered with every beat. I understand," he choked out, unable to say more. Words failed him. Only the rising storm outside could match the storm inside him. Stepped back, her body shimmering, glowing brighter and brighter with pure energy. Silver light cascaded across her veins, spreading through the and into the ship. Her eyes locked with one last time. "You gave me a reason to leave the shadows," she said. "I will give you the gift of someone who stands by you, always." Then she moved toward the airlock. The crew's eyes widened as the glow of her body intensified, the air trembling with power. Ran to her, reaching out, but she held his hand for a final moment. "Do not fear," she said, her voice echoing in his mind. "I am with you even when I am gone." The doors of the airlock hissed closed. Pounded on them, shouting her name, but she smiled, a soft, gentle expression that filled his chest with warmth and unbearable sorrow. Then in a brilliant flash, she unleashed her energy. The light expanded, filling the void around the washing over the swarm like a tidal wave of stars. Shielded his eyes, feeling the immense power coursing through space, through the ship, through him. In that moment he understood what she had done. She had heard his quiet wish, and she had faced it with him. She had sacrificed everything to answer it. The light blazed. The ships faltered, their engines failing, weapons dying. And then the glow vanished, leaving only the hum of and the silence of the stars. Sank to his knees, tears streaming freely now. His heart ached, filled with gratitude, sorrow, and wonder, had faced him when no one else could. She had stood by him in a way no human or any being ever had. And now, though she was gone, he would carry her presence with him forever. They floated in silence. The alarms had stopped. The shaking had stopped. Even the engines hummed softer now, as if the ship itself were catching its breath. The crew stared out the observation windows at the empty space where the swarm had once filled the void. There were no explosions, no bodies of ships, only silence, broken by the distant glimmer of stars. Knelt on the deck, his hands trembling. He could still feel the warmth of touch lingering in his mind, the memory of her lilac eyes, the echo of her voice. "Do not fear, I am with you even when I am gone." He whispered her name, and the sound caught in his throat. The crew moved cautiously around him, unsure how to speak or act. Lieutenant approached, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Captain, it's over," she said softly. "The swarm, it's gone." Looked up, eyes still misted with tears. She did this," he said. "She saved us all." Outside, in the void of space, the faint shimmer of silver remained. It wasn't body, it had dissolved in her final act, but a trace of her presence lingered like starlight etched into the darkness. The crew watched it silently, knowing that something extraordinary had happened. Stood slowly, his legs weak but his spirit burning with gratitude and awe. He walked to the observation deck, staring at the nebula beyond the stars. His energy had spread across the swarm, disrupting their ships, shutting down their engines, and scattering them helplessly into space. Her sacrifice had turned the tide, but it had come at the greatest cost. He pressed his hand to the glass, imagining her standing beside him, smiling softly. He could still feel her courage, her determination, the connection she had given him. For weeks he had carried loneliness like a stone in his chest. Now that stone was gone, replaced by something fragile but unbreakable, a memory, a bond, and a promise. The ship's systems beeped softly, returning to normal. Walked through the corridors, seeing the crew tending to minor damage, tending to each other. There was relief in their movements, a quiet gratitude for the life they had been given. But for everything had changed. He returned to the observation deck where he had first whispered his wish. The stars stretched endlessly, but they no longer felt distant or cold. There was a light in the darkness, a faint shimmer that reminded him of. He closed his eyes, letting her presence wash over him. "You are not alone," he whispered to himself, echoing the words she had left behind. A soft energy seemed to brush against his mind, comforting him, reminding him that even though she was gone, her gift remained. Her choice had answered the wish he thought no one could hear. Remembered every detail, the way she had looked at him, the touch of her hand, the quiet courage in her lilac eyes. He remembered the words she had spoken when the world was about to end, and how she had faced the darkness for him, for his crew, and for the fragile hope of connection that he had carried in secret. The crew gathered around him quietly. They didn't speak immediately, as if giving him the space to grieve and to remember. Finally said, "Captain, she gave everything to save us, to save you." Knotted his throat tight. "Yes," he said. "She faced me when no one else would. She heard my quiet wish and answered it in the only way she could. I will carry her with me always." The ship drifted onward, through empty space, past shattered remnants and into the calm of the galaxy. And though body no longer existed, her presence lingered, an energy that would never fade. Felt it in his chest, in his thoughts, in the very way he saw the stars. She had faced him, had believed in his worth, had given him the gift of connection he had longed for in silence. For the first time in years, smiled. Not a small smile, but one that came from the heart, fragile and bright, a light in the cold darkness. He understood now what courage could be. Not the courage of battle, but the courage of standing with someone, of answering a wish, of giving everything for someone else's hope. Looked at the stars and whispered once more, his voice steady and full of emotion, "Thank you for being there when I needed you most. I will never be alone again." And far in the void, though her form was gone, the faint shimmer of silver traced across the stars. A reminder of a bond that even death could not erase, a quiet wish that had been heard, and the love and courage that had answered it. The galaxy was vast, dangerous, and silent, but in his heart a light had taken root, a light that would never die, that floated through the calm of space. The red glow of the destroyed swarm had faded, leaving only distant stars and the soft hum of the ship. Stood at the observation deck, staring into the vast darkness, his hands resting lightly on the railing. The weight of what had happened pressed on him, yet it was not the weight of fear. It was the weight of understanding, of gratitude, and of loss. He closed his eyes, remembering. Her lilac eyes, her soft smile, the way her voice had reached him even in the dark. She had answered his quiet wish, the wish he had whispered so softly, thinking no one could hear. And in doing so, she had given everything. She had faced the impossible, not for glory, not for recognition, but simply because she had heard a lonely human heart and chosen to stand with it. His chest ached, a mixture of sorrow and something far deeper, hope. He could still feel her presence, not physically, but in a way that transcended the empty space around him. A soft warmth brushed against his thoughts, a gentle echo that reminded him she was still with him, in spirit if not in body. The crew moved quietly around him. Some repaired minor systems, others checked the remaining shields, but all felt the weight of her sacrifice. None of them spoke. Words could not capture the depth of what had happened. They had witnessed something extraordinary, a being from another world, nearly unknown, giving everything for the life of a human and his crew. Finally spoke, his voice low but steady. "She faced me when no one else did. She heard my quiet wish and answered it." His gaze moved to the faint silver shimmer that lingered across the void outside. It was like starlight dancing on the edge of consciousness, a memory etched into space itself. And even though she is gone, she is still here. Stepped beside him, placing a hand lightly on his shoulder. "Captain, she saved us all. We're alive because of her." "Yes," whispered, swallowing the lump in his throat. "And she saved me too, in ways I didn't even know I needed." The memory of her sacrifice settled in his heart. She had not just defeated the swarm, she had given him something far more valuable, connection. The loneliness he had carried for years, the quiet ache that no human or crew member had ever fully understood, was gone. In its place was a presence, a bond, and a hope that could never be erased. He walked slowly to the center of the observation deck, placing both hands on the rail and staring outward. The stars stretched endlessly, distant yet warm, like memories of home he had almost forgotten. He whispered her name once more. "Thank you for everything." The shimmer in space seemed to pulse faintly, almost as if responding to him. smiled through tears, realizing that she had left more than energy behind. She had left a promise. That even when someone is gone, the courage, love, and hope they shared can continue to live on. From that day on, knew he would never whisper wishes quietly again. He had learned that even the smallest hope, spoken softly into the void, can reach across galaxies and touch another soul. Someone somewhere may hear it, and sometimes they may be willing to give everything for it. The crew slowly gathered around him, sharing quiet words and gentle smiles. They had survived because of courage, but more importantly, they had learned something profound. The universe was not indifferent. Among the vastness of space, bonds could form, courage could rise, and even a quiet wish could echo with extraordinary power. Looked around at his crew and then back to the stars. He could feel with him in every heartbeat, in every soft hum of the ship, and in the calm of the endless night outside. She had faced him, stood with him, and given him the gift he had sought so quietly. He would carry that gift with him forever. Finally, he closed his eyes, letting a tear slide down his cheek. Not from pain, not from loss, but from the overwhelming truth that he had been seen, understood, and cherished, even for a fleeting moment. And that moment had changed everything. They sailed onward, through the infinite galaxy. The stars sparkled like witnesses to the bond that had formed between a human captain and an alien who had heard his quiet wish. Knew the universe was vast, dangerous, and full of unknowns. But now, he had learned that courage, love, and connection could shine brighter than any darkness. And in his heart, he carried her light. He whispered one last time, a soft vow to the cosmos. I am not alone because you faced me. The stars seemed to shimmer in reply, and for the first time in years truly believed it.